أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على محمد وعلى آله وصحبه والتابعين بإحسان إلى يوم الدين. We start in the name of Allah, the most gracious, most merciful, and we bear witness there is no deity worthy worship except Allah. Praise and glory be to Him, and that Muhammad is the seal of messengers. He was sent as a mercy to all mankind. May peace and blessing of Allah be upon him, his family, his companions, and those who followed his path until the day of judgment. I greet you with greeting of Islam. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. And this is our A2Z show with your host, Dr. Abdul Aziz, and our guest, Brother Asad Zaman. And of course, you can always email us on admin@Radio Hajj online. And inshallah, Radio Hajj will be online as well for you for the month of Ramadan as well. And you can go online, and it is full of programs for you to keep you busy as well. And of course, there's a lot of things to cover. And we start, inshallah, of course, we are almost 2 days today and tomorrow, I think, away from Ramadan. And of course, always we have this issue about moon sighting. Although I can tell you that the new moon is born at 3:15 at 3:15 on Sunday, and therefore it will be impossible to see it anywhere for 2 days, and therefore we'll be going for 30 days of Sha'ban, and normally Ramadan should be on Tuesday. I want to ask you, I send the European Council Fatwa and Research talking about how important is astronomy and calculation, and they have said that if astronomy said it's impossible to see it and somebody claim he has seen it, it's by error or by fabrication. But why Muslims still just talking about fast when you see it and break your fast when you see it, and still sticking to this issue, about every month? Normally this is sorted out by astronomy, and normally astronomy was actually pioneered by Muslims because it's part of our religion. Okay, the 5 daily prayers, the Hajj, all of them are based on calculation of time and seasons as well. But the question, Brother Asad Zaman, is why people still they don't. Everybody now is putting a lecture about it, and everybody is a scholar,
Very simple. Wa alaikum assalam. Assalamu alaikum to everyone listening and watching. This is an issue that's going to go on and on until there is Muslim unity on this issue. Now, you talked about, I think you mentioned mosques coming together and agreeing on the Ramadan timetable.
Yeah, well, 13 mosques, yeah.
Yeah, that's a big start. And my hope and our hope, of course, is that they can agree on the beginning of Ramadan and the end of Ramadan.
Okay.
Because if they can agree on the timetable, then hopefully they can agree when it starts and when it finishes.
Yeah, I think they put the 13th of April as Tuesday as the beginning of 1st of Ramadan, yes.
Let's hope that they stick to that, because you know what happens always. You've been involved in this. I've been involved in this over the last 20, 30 years.
Yeah.
And, there'll be a group of them coming together from different mosques, different denominations, Muslims, and they will agree on something. And then they go back to their mosque, and then the agreement is worth nothing. They go their own ways. And so there's no unity. And because there's no unity, this is a problem that we are going to suffer until Imam Mahdi comes. And this is the reality.
Yeah, but
when we can agree, when we have some unity and have some trust in each other, then you will find that we will come to an agreement on the criteria. And, it's really not rocket science. It's not difficult. But when there's no unity, the simplest thing becomes very difficult. And that's all there is to it. Either you agree on a calculation, everyone says, okay, whatever this particular mosque decides this year, we all agree on it. We all agree on it. Whether it's a calculation, whether it's sighting of the moon with the eyes or whatever it is. And it doesn't happen. It doesn't happen. They won't agree on one particular criteria. And they can chain the different mosques. They can say this year we'll have this mosque, and just pick out names from a hat. Okay, and then once one mosque is chosen, that's it for that particular, the next 10 years, 20 years, you've sorted the problem out. It's just you randomly pick out a name, a neutral person does it, have it televised or, on social media and say, look, this was done totally fairly. A name out of a hat of a mosque, whenever they decide, everyone decides on the same day. So whether that mosque decides based on, moon sighting, or whether it's on calculation, or whether it's on Saudi Arabia, or whether it's on this country or Morocco or whatever that mosque decides, everyone just follows that. How easy and simple would it be? What difference does it make whether it will start on Tuesday or Wednesday? Makes no difference at all. But it's about unity. Agree on one principle and let put names of every mosque in a hat. And every time we have, start of Ramadan or end of Ramadan, just choose a different, just pick out a mosque from the hat and let them decide, and everyone goes with it. So there we are. There's your solution.
And this Ramadan, you just mentioned Saudi Arabia and Morocco. Why the Ramadan is a scholarly issue based on a knowledge and science of astronomy and everything? Why they play with it on politics? Why they use it for politics? Why they don't get completely out of it? They have nothing to do with it.
Some people like unity and others don't. Some people, mosques may feel unity is not in their interest. For example, if there is unity, and there is a lot of talk of having one single Jama'ah prayer, say in Platfields Park or one of these parks.
Yeah, we have done it before. Yes, Manchester Eid Festival. Yes.
But you see, that means that the mosques, which normally hold the Eid prayer, they miss out on thousands of pounds of donations.
Right.
So politically, economically, some of them may feel that it's not in their interest to go along with everybody else.
Right.
May Allah give us unity. Let's move on. Okay,
right. Our mosque as well, they have decided that they will do Isha prayer, and then some of them, they do it for 1 hour, 2 Taraweeh prayers. And I think the last 10 days, they will do I'tikaf as well, therefore 1 hour before Fajr as well. And the other thing as well, they decided that those people who have a underlying health condition will not be allowed to come, and as well children under 12 or something, they will not be allowed to come as well. And the idea, of course, that the Taraweeh is a sunnah anyway. It's not compulsory.
That's right.
Therefore, you can, like we did it in the lockdown last year, we prayed, all of us, we prayed at home.
That's right. And I think that really, you mentioned the most important point there. Look, when there is a risk, okay, when there is a risk of potential harm, then the obvious thing is that you don't put yourself in harm's way. You minimize that risk. And if it's a sunnah, then quite simply, pray at home. Important thing is, of course, that you do some prayers at home until this issue of the virus subsides and maybe we got herd immunity or majority of the people are vaccinated, and so there's a lower risk of transferring the illness to anybody else. I think these are the sort of things that we need to be thinking about. So personally, I agree. Until this virus situation is sorted out, I don't think there should be any prayer which is not vital. I mean, apart from the fard prayers. And of course, for those, it's all social distancing, and about a seventh of the number of people who can normally go are going because of the lack of space. So we just have to live with it. We discussed this before. I think they should, ulama should get together and for Jummah prayers and even the 5-day prayers, the Tarawih prayers, say, look, it's acceptable on Zoom. Just pray with your local mosque at home on Zoom, and it's acceptable, and you will get the same reward of 27 prayers or whatever, because of these extraordinary circumstances.
Yeah, because I think some scholar, the European Council for Inter said, I think, as far as the Sunnah is concerned, is not a problem. But as we mentioned before, Friday, it is not. That's not right as well, because we did listen to the khutbah and then we have to pray Dhuhr at home as well. Now, let's move on in fasting and for children. Now, you know that they are on holiday now, and they are, I think, up to next week. And sometimes, the children, out of curiosity, they start thinking about, fasting. And how can we encourage children fast? But I said, do not send them as young as 10 or 10 years old as well to a primary school fasting, because the fast is almost at least, I think, I mean, it's 8 o'clock now, and it's almost 5 o'clock. It's about 18 hours. What is your...
No, it's about 15, 16 hours.
15, 16 hours, sorry, yes. And now, what is your advice to the parents who have children and they want to fast, encourage them to fast? First of all, what is the age children will be encouraged to fast?
I mean, look, yeah, I mean, this is, a very simple one, really. So far as children are concerned, yes, we should be giving them practice. I mean, look at Salah. The Prophet ﷺ has told us from the age of 7,
yes,
you start training them, okay, encourage them, but no forcing them.
yes.
So for 3 solid years, you are just training them. And so and then at the age of 10, it becomes compulsory on them.
Yes.
But if we apply the same logic to fasting, quite simply, at an early age, especially when they want to join in, maybe a 5-year-old or 6-year-old, let them fast for maybe a couple of hours.
Okay.
For a very, very short period. And then perhaps an hour or so, maybe 2 hours before iftar, say, okay, your fast starts now. And then the child can break the fast with the rest of the family. And they will have felt that, they would have had some experience of the fast. And of course, as they grow older, 6, 7, 8, then they can increase the length of time. And I think by the time the child is about 7, 8, certainly on 1 or 2 days, maybe on a weekend when they're off
Saturday and Sunday, yes.
Yeah, let them fast for the whole day, especially now for the next maybe 15, 20 years. It's going to be quite easy because it's getting shorter and shorter.
Yes, yeah.
So, for the next, certainly 10, 15, 18 years, it'll be around between 15 and of course in December, it'll be just 9 hours and
yes.
I mean, nothing. Yeah, 9 hours. So yes, gradually get them into it, wean them in, just as mothers do with their children in terms of, first of all, it's milk only when the child is born, and they start feeding them food after maybe, a few months, 6, 7, 8 months, 9 months. Start giving them baby food, but which is completely almost like liquid. And then gradually, when their teeth start growing as well, but by the time they're 1.5, then they can start eating proper food. So we get them used to. So it's a gradual process, and help them to understand the importance of fasting as well, but obviously not to be oppressive on them. So by the time they are, I would say, I mean, I don't think in Islam there is a particular age, because unlike prayer, of course, is not a physically demanding thing, but
Yes.
but fasting is.
Yes.
And therefore it depends on the child, and every parent knows whether their child can handle it or not. And if they've been through this gradual process since the age of 5 or 6, with a couple of hours here, 1 hour there, 2-3 hours, get them gradually used to staying without food for some time. Mother knows, okay, my child is ready now to take full responsibility. And I think from the age of 10, I mean, you've taught 10-year-olds, I've taught thousands of 10-year-olds, and I know on average, the average 10-year-old can easily handle all 29, 30 fasts without too much difficulty. Certainly 11-year-old, but I'd say even a 10-year-old.
Therefore, you're talking about a secondary school. Now, the secondary school, there is an issue. If the children are going to secondary school, 11, 12 years old, and of course, year 7 to year 11, there is 2 issues. One is that, do you need to send a letter to the school to tell them my son is fasting?
I think that's a good idea. But I think before that, there needs to be a meeting between the head and some parents. That meeting is really, really crucial for the head to understand. This needs to be planned between the parents and the head.
Because there's a health risk, you say. There's a risk, yeah.
Yeah, so it needs to be planned between them. And no doubt they can come to an agreement in terms of, not so reducing, for example, the activities of the child during the month of Ramadan in terms of PE and running around. But I'm beginning to change my attitude to kind of trying to conserve your energy in Ramadan, because the one thing that we have learned in recent years from scientists, and most of them non-Muslim scientists, is that actually in Ramadan, the body reacts in a way as to release more energy.
Yes.
So because of the impact of fasting on the human body. And therefore, actually, we should theoretically, certainly, have more energy in this month rather than less energy. So certainly anything that makes you very thirsty, too much running around, etc., especially if the weather is hot, that's not recommended. But general work, I don't think it should really be impacted by fasting. So yes, let the parents and the head teacher, let them have a meeting, discuss the matter openly, and then there won't be a problem. Because in the past, I know many primary schools, they banned primary school children from actually fasting.
Yes.
And that really should not happen. That should not happen.
But for the month of Ramadan, if I look to the mainstream media, they don't speak about it at all.
Well, they do mention it, that, Ramadan is coming, and there is the odd article. I've seen the odd article in The Guardian, in the various newspapers. And I have, in the past anyway, not in last 1 or 2 years, but about 3 years ago, the BBC invited me down to their studio here in Manchester. And I remember, I think it was just before Ramadan started, I gave, I think, probably about 15 or 20 interviews within 1.5 hours. All of the local BBC radio stations. And they organize it between them, that I would be coming on for maybe 2-3 minutes on one, and then immediately 2-3 minutes for the next one, and immediately 2-3 minutes on the next one. Just basically
snapshot, yeah.
Yeah. So about 3-4 minutes, maybe 3-4 minutes, depending on the registration, how many questions they want to ask me. But yes, and within 1.5 hours, you can imagine how many radio stations I went through
Right.
throughout the entire country. So there is some coverage. Perhaps there could be more coverage, but there is some coverage.
Okay. And do you think that the mosque have to play a role before Ramadan to use Ramadan as a da'wah project, because Ramadan, as you said, fasting, I did some research about, what is alcohol and drugs addiction, rehabilitation costs about £1,000 a month, 4,028 days, up to 10,000, and a lot of, especially I always find it amazing, the new Muslims, how they give up drinking and drugs and everything.
Yeah, subhanAllah, look, the increase in iman, increase in taqwa,
God fear, yes, okay.
Yeah, taqwa, God consciousness.
Yes.
Can develop an extraordinary level of willpower within an individual, and things that you did not dream of being able to give up, you are able to give them up because of that level of God consciousness that has entered you, and that strength of faith allows you to develop that willpower and self-control and self-discipline to overcome the addictive nature of, for example, alcohol or drugs or whatever. So, the human being is an extraordinary creature. Yes, we've got our weaknesses, and there are, certain chemicals which are triggered as a result of taking drugs and stuff. But the important thing is that we endeavor to do our best to try and, stay within the boundaries that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us, and to do those things, indulge in those actions that He has made a fard. And as we indulge in them, and of course, we will become stronger. Here's another thing, though, you see. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has customized this month of Ramadan. We're now talking about Ramadan. He has customized this month for the purpose of raising your taqwa. How? Well, the Prophet ﷺ told us that when Ramadan starts, the doors of heaven are opened and the doors of hell are closed.
Yes.
And the shaitan, Satan, the devil, is chained up. Now, let's examine this, because if the shaitan is chained up, if the devil is chained up, why is it that we still commit sins? We generally commit sins because of the devil. He tempts us. So if he's chained up, then why do people still commit sins? I mean, sins don't stop in Ramadan. Well, the answer is a very simple one. Imagine a man, for example, being chained to a wall. So he's there, chained up, can't move. Now, as you come closer to that person and they talk to you, you can hear what they're saying. But as you move away from them, well, they can't come with you. They have to stay there because they're chained up. As you move away from them, the whispering or their voice becomes less audible. And the further you move away, the less you are going to hear. And that is basically what happens with shaitan. The only influence that shaitan has over us is whispering and temptation. He can encourage us to do something. We can choose to do it or choose not to do it. Now, the more we worship Allah, and that's what Ramadan is about. It is a month of worship where we intensify our worship. where the normal shackles that stop us from going to the mosque or praying, they are removed. SubhanAllah, we all experience it, we all feel it. And the result is that in Ramadan, the mosques are much more full for every prayer than they are outside of Ramadan. And even, Fajr prayer, which sadly is only a very small number of people normally turn up in a mosque, or even get up, even at home to pray. In Ramadan, we suddenly see that is no longer the case. Many more people go to the mosque to pray. Many more people will pray their Fajr at home. And of course, we become much more conscious. So you see, Ramadan is about conditioning and controlling the nafs, the control. Now, so what things influence us? I'm talking about the customization of Ramadan for the purpose of raising our taqwa. So raising our taqwa, becoming more God conscious, more conscious of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, developing more fear of Allah, and at the same time developing a far greater control over our bodies so that we can control the amount of sin. Because sin is, we all know we commit sins with our eyes, our ears, our mouths, our hands, etc. And in this month, because of the level of taqwa that is elevated within each of us, some more than others, of course, we are able to control those organs through which we commit sins. And therefore, we are really disciplining the soul. So what are the impacts? It's all about the soul, the ruh. And what are the influences on that? One is shaitan and one is nafs. So the shaitan, as he becomes chained up, you see, outside of Ramadan, the shaitan follows us everywhere. Wherever we go, the shaitan follows us. But in Ramadan, the shaitan is chained up. So the more we worship Allah, the closer we come to Allah, the more distance we create between ourselves and the shaitan.
Okay.
We become further and further. So the more we worship, if the shaitan is there, we are moving away. And therefore the whispering of the shaitan becomes less. And therefore the influence of the shaitan upon us becomes less. So we commit less sins. And that brings us closer to Allah.
Now the last, I think, yes,
that's
the last, yes, okay.
Now, what is the second influence on the soul? Second influence, which could be negative, is your nafs, your desires. Now, here's the interesting thing about the nafs. We generally see the nafs as a bad thing. But the nafs is neither good or bad. The nafs is desire. We can condition and discipline the nafs so that it doesn't just desire bad, it desires good. Because if we enjoy, for example, worshipping Allah, we enjoy giving money to charity, then nafs will say to us, do more of this. Do more. The nafs doesn't care. The nafs wants pleasure. So you may get pleasure through committing haram, or you may get pleasure from doing halal. So in Ramadan, what we are doing is we should start to enjoy worship much more. And the more we spend during worship, the more we are going to enjoy doing that worship. Okay. That's really important. I've experienced it, and I'm sure you've experienced it. That sometimes you are enjoying your salah so much, you do not want to stop. You want to, first of all, you slow down. Every word you say, you slow it down and you think about it. You reflect over it. you try to imagine Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdika. You can just imagine the glory of Allah. You are reflecting upon the amazing universe and the galaxies and everything else Allah has created. You say Subhanallah, Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdika. And then you are thanking Allah for everything. And imagine this is going through your head and you're doing it slowly, very slowly. Then Surah Al-Fatiha, you're reading it very slowly, reflecting upon every word you're saying. Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'een. Oh Allah, it is only you we worship. And of course, the concept of worship is also going through your head. What is worship? And only you we ask for isti'ana. What is the concept of isti'ana when you say iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'een? Only you we ask for help. That concept, if we understand it, we reflect upon it. And ihdina as-sirat al-mustaqim. What is ihdi? What is hidayah? You're asking Allah to guide you along the sirat al-mustaqim. What does that mean? So we will discuss Al-Fatiha in some detail some other time.
Right.
But the important thing is, the point I'm trying to make is that in this month, forget about time. Forget about rushing. Take your time over your salah. Your 5 minutes for fard should become 15 minutes, maybe 20 minutes. Spend more time in sujood and ruku'. Spend more time just pondering over the words you are uttering and reflect over its meaning.
Okay, inshallah.
Then you will enjoy your salah.
Okay, I think the last question is whether I think it's an issue with Muslims, grown-ups in high school and everything. What is your advice to a parent whose son or daughter, they don't fast?
Well, if they've done their job and they've encouraged them to fast from the age of 4 or 5, as we discussed earlier, then that won't be a problem. They'll already be used to it by the time it becomes fard upon them and mom and dad feel, yes, my child can handle the fast now, not just a few fasts, but all the fasts. It won't even be an issue. But if you've never discussed it and the child has never fasted until 10 years of age, then it may well become a bit of an issue. So really, if you don't want your child to say no at the age of 10, then make sure that you are slowly grooming them into the idea of fasting from an early age.
Right. Okay. Now, national, let's go to, the death of Prince Philip, the Duke of Edinburgh, after 73 years of marriage with Elizabeth II. He died at the age of 99, 100 almost, minus 2 months anyway. I think we always say behind every man, there is a great woman. But do we have this as well? Behind a great woman, there is a great man.
Well, I've got a rough idea as to how he lived. Apparently, he was quite a competent admiral or quite a competent person in the Navy. And he had a good career going there. Certainly, I've heard a lot of praise from those who worked with him in the Navy. But of course, that was a very long time ago in his youth. So although we generally tend to see him as a rather incompetent individual, the reality is that he was quite a competent person, a Navy man. But then, of course, suddenly he had to leave the Navy, something that he really regretted because he enjoyed it. And because his wife, Princess Elizabeth, became Queen Elizabeth
Yes.
when George, her father, suddenly died. So she becomes queen at a very, very early age, I think 20 something. And of course, it's a bit bewildering for most people why he didn't become king. But anyway, he didn't. And he's got a sort of Greek and I think German and Russian blood inside him anyway.
Yes.
So as soon as he becomes, of course, his wife becomes queen, he has to leave the Navy. And then basically he has to support the queen wherever he goes. And, that must have been a very, very difficult thing for him as a man to do, to be basically number two. I mean, a man is used to being the decision maker and, number one. But he always had to play second fiddle to the queen, basically just accompanying her everywhere. She was always the central, figure of attention, and he was like on the side, just holding her hand more or less. So he had to somehow present himself as, yes, being there to basically, I suppose, in a way, the reason that Hawa was created for Adam al-Islam, right? To be a company for him, if you like. And he's there for exactly the opposite. It's the queen who is a central figure, and he's there to simply accompany her.
Support her, yeah.
Yes. And so he was, he had to put, queen and country first, and his career second. And that's how he's lived for decades. But of course, he's not going to be known for his, his Navy abilities. He's going to be well known for the crazy stuff that he's well known for. The gaffes. Some of them are racist. Others are just strange. He liked to, he just, whatever came into his head, he just came out of his mouth. For example, the former, I think, Prime Minister of Canada was saying on Radio 4 this morning that when he came to Canada, when this guy who was talking, he said, he was the, I think, Prime Minister or whatever of Canada. And he decided to, I don't know, it was some occasion, and he decided to wear a Nigerian dress. And Prince Philip, when he went to visit him, said, "Are you ready for bed or something?" So he was making fun of his Nigerian dress like this is like pajamas. So he was not very diplomatic. He went to a Labour meeting of female sort of Labour MPs, I think it was. And they're all women, of course. And so he says, "Oh, so you must be the feminist brigade or something."
All right.
So he didn't care who he was talking to. He came out with these offensive stuff. He was on the Great Wall of China a few years ago. I remember that like yesterday. I think it must have been about 10 years ago. And he's got these hundreds, and this they showed on television. There were hundreds of these Chinese, mostly young people, who are all surrounding him. Okay, and he's in the middle there. And a British student came towards him as he was surrounded by these Chinese, and Prince Philip shouted at him, "Don't stay here too long, otherwise you'll get slitty eyes." And this is caught on camera.
Out of the blue, yeah.
This is caught on camera. I mean, how racist could you be? I mean, that is just pure, racism. To make fun of their eyes, etc., like that.
I think And I
Yeah,
think
and there were
the
many other instances like that. He could be accused of racism, of just opening his mouth when he shouldn't, and just saying crazy things.
right. And I think they will do a royal funeral, not the state funeral as well. Boris Johnson is not going because of COVID-19 guidelines, and I think the whole funeral will be, I think, between family members as well on the next Saturday, 17th of April. I think let's move on. They may be local as well. This is just not this petition about headscarf in issue in France, and Afzal Khan MP put that petition. It's almost around, maybe I think I left it yesterday, about 136,000 people have it. But there was a lot of people not happy about it. He said why he is dealing with a French issue. Muslim in France should deal with their own business, and why he didn't actually do the same for sex education, sex and relationship education.
Look, these are politicians, and politicians will do whatever is necessary to get them elected and go up the political ladder. So, you just have to ask yourself that question. He must have sat down and said, is this in my interest or is it not in my interest? Will this get me more votes or less votes? And if he comes to the conclusion this is going to get him more votes, then he's going to go for it. And if it's going to get him less votes, then he won't go for it. The politicians can't, unfortunately, have too many morals and conscience and stuff. It's their political careers that come first. And in this situation, he judged that, it would be better for his political career if he did this. And with the LGBT situation, he felt that it was not in his interest to not support the LGBT community with his vote stuff. So him and the other Muslim MPs, they went along with it. So unfortunately, once people get into politics, then there's an erosion of their iman, there's an erosion of their values and principles, and it soon becomes much more clear to them that they have to put their political careers and whatever is good for their political careers first, and their own personal, beliefs and values second.
Okay.
And that, is for probably most politicians.
All right.
The important thing is, you mentioned France. You see, France is heading towards, I think, total disaster. I'll tell you what I think may happen. You see, France is now creating a pressure cooker situation for its Muslim community. Everybody knows this is an anti-Muslim sort of bill that's gone through now. It's got to be approved, where you just can't wear a headscarf. That's it. There's no ifs or buts about it, whether in school, outside of school, whether you're a girl or a woman or whoever you are. Okay. Because this is very openly an expression of Muslimness, to be a Muslim. Of course, the fact that Virgin Mary, Maryam al-Islam, wore a headscarf, they don't care. And this is supposed to be a Catholic country.
Yes.
So the whole idea of secular liberalism, laicite, I think they call it.
Laicite, yes.
Laicite. This is, they've taken this to the extreme. In all Western countries, you've got laicite, you've got secularism. But in France, they've decided to be an extremist form of secularism, a very fundamentalist and extremist form, and what they would probably call a pure form, resulting in any expression of religiosity, any expression from the day you're born to the day you die, that has to be wiped out, because your faith must be in your home or in your place of worship. Once you step out on the street, or you are outside of your home and outside of your place of worship, then you are an ordinary member of the Republic, and therefore you need to behave like everybody else. In Rome, do as Romans do. In Paris, you do as the Parisians do. And that is the message of Macron and of France to its over 6 million population, Muslim population. What's going to happen? I'll tell you what's going to happen. What I think is going to happen. You will have a small group who says, to hell with what these measures. And they will form a very extremist group that will create problems for the state. And they will indulge more probably in criminal behavior and will give the rest of the 6 million Muslims even, a more worse reputation and create more friction and more problems for the Muslims of France, as well as the general population of France. This is going to explode because Muslims are not going to tolerate being crushed and in this situation. The pressure cooker is going to explode. So France is being very irresponsible. We know why they're doing it. They're telling the far-right electorate, we are more anti-Muslim than Marine Le Pen, the National Front. We are more anti-Muslim, so don't vote for her, vote for us.
Right, okay.
I mean, it's about politics. We know it's about politics.
Okay, I think we follow up that file anyway. I think let's move on to Northern Ireland and tension between the loyalist and unionist community. Very, very disturbing incidents when you see, yeah?
Yeah, look, this was predicted. And now those who are against Brexit, they are saying, look, we told you, don't go for this. You're going to destroy the United Kingdom. And that is a direction that things are going. Because you see, Boris Johnson has been proven to be a liar on many, many occasions. And they are accusing him now of lying again when it comes to treating Northern Ireland differently to the rest of the United Kingdom. He said, no, there'll be no border control, there'll be no this. It's all happening. So the natural direction things are now taking is that Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland will join together again.
Because can we just, Ireland is still part of the European Union, isn't it?
Right. In the Republic of Ireland, of which the capital is Dublin,
yes,
that is a totally separate country to the UK.
Yes.
And they are part of the EU.
Yes, all right.
And economically, they're doing extremely well.
SubhanAllah.
Okay? They're doing extremely well. It's only a small population, but they're doing well for various reasons, technology and what have you. The United Kingdom, as Britain, France, America, Britain, France, what am I talking about? England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland, okay? These are part of the UK. Now, when the referendum for the EU happened, people in Northern Ireland and Scotland voted in favor, in majority voted in favor of the EU.
To stay with the EU, yes.
To stay with the EU, but England, the majority, very small majority,
yes,
voted to stay.
4 to 5%, yes.
To leave, yeah? It's a very small majority. I think it's something like 41, 48, 51, 48 or something like that.
Yeah.
Only a couple of percent more. So, and the Welsh, I believe also as well. So now that people can see the negative impact of Brexit on Northern Ireland, they are saying, okay, this is not what we were promised. This is not what we were told. And the result is that, there's all this violence.
But I
And-
just ask you why a political issue is gone down to the harmony of the community. You know, why it went to that kind of violence between the unionists and the loyalists, you know, and it's a political issue. Why they cannot sort it politically instead of sorting it in the streets?
because Boris Johnson promised the people of Northern Ireland certain conditions which he has not met, and they're angry. You are seeing their anger. It's as simple as that. So what we are seeing now, as said, is the breakup of the United Kingdom. That's what we are seeing. And it won't be too long before I think, especially if we see the economic situation in England getting seriously worse, which I think it will. I think we are heading for a complete disaster. The West as a whole is heading for a complete disaster, but the England in particular is, or the UK. As the economic situation in the next 5 years becomes seriously bad in the UK, Scotland, the Scottish are likely to say, okay, we want to grab onto the EU. We don't want to drown with England. And the Northern Irish will say, we also want to be part of the EU. And of course, that means becoming one with the Republic of Ireland again. Because the Republic of Ireland is already in the EU. So that's where I think things are going. Give it another 5 to 10 years, and possibly you will have, England by itself, possibly Wales as a separate country, Scotland as a separate country, and Northern Ireland as a separate country. Maybe you may find that Wales, Scotland, and Northern Ireland may decide to become one country, separate to England. So, all of these things could possibly happen.
Okay, right. Let's move on this Zionist lobby and its interference in the UK politics. Sir Alan Duncan blasts pro-Israeli lobby over disgusting interference in UK politics.
Well, it's not surprising. Al Jazeera did an excellent documentary a few years ago, which exposed some members of the Israeli embassy in London for interfering in British politics and deciding who's going to be the leader and who isn't, and what policies are going to be pushed. They will do anything to make sure that, say, the British Parliament or the American parliaments, or possibly Australian, Canadian, maybe French, that they will act in the favor of Israel, and therefore to put into power those people who are, pro-Israeli Zionists. So that really shouldn't surprise us. What surprises me is Alan Duncan was brave enough to say what he said, to be critical of them. That's what surprises me, because because of there might be a small number. I mean, there's supposed to be about 200,000 in Britain, Jews, but the influence is immense. 25% of all billionaires in the UK are Jewish. And no doubt most of them, if not all of them, are Zionists. So the power is there. Numbers may be small, but you don't need huge numbers. You just need the influence. And therefore, and especially now when Israeli politics itself is in a mess, they've had, God knows, 5-6 elections in 4 or 5 years. They can't decide who's going to rule. I think that they realize they're all incompetent, and Israel is a bit of a mess. And then, of course, you've got all these politics going on in the Middle East with the Saudis and the Emiratis and these other Gulf countries jumping in bed with Israel, and yeah, it's a complete it's a bit of a mess as to what is actually happening. But definitely, the Israelis will do what they can to make sure that they have plenty of influence in this country. Whether they use legitimate
And
means.
do you think that
No.
this issue, which has been risen by Sir Alan Duncan, like in America, when they thought about the Russian interference in United States affairs and everything, they put an inquiry. Do you think that they should trigger a national inquiry?
We can ask for it, but you should understand something. Most people perhaps don't know that the Conservative Friends of Israel, which is a very, very powerful Zionist lobby, which has about, 70, maybe over 70% of all conservative MPs are members of that Conservative Friends of Israel. They will always act in the interest of Israel, and they will protect Israel. And that includes, these Muslim MPs as well. Like you had Sajid Javed and others who were supposed to be, well, at least, he's got a Muslim name and a Muslim family. But yeah, these people, the most powerful of the lobbies, of course, you got your as Conservative Friends of Israel, CFI, and also Labour Friends of Israel, also very powerful pro-Israeli lobby. And of course, you've got your Jewish Board of Deputies. So these are powerful lobbies that will always act in the interests of Israel. So we shouldn't be surprised that they are interfering in this way.
Okay. Let's, I think, move on, because I think time is running very fast. World news. The 9th of April, 1948, the massacre in Deir Yassin. And of course, the terrorist organization, the Haganah, and all this slaughtered almost 130 innocent people, which caused almost 700,000 to leave their land and their houses. And the ICC, the International Criminal Court, has been denied to gather evidence of crime against humanity, of genocide in Israel. Why is that?
Influence, power. America will always protect Israel. And also, of course, remember, America itself did not sign up to the ICC, and I don't think Israel has signed up to the ICC. So, although you can just check to see whether Israel has signed up, I know America refuses to.
Yes.
Because America knows that its troops are going to end up in The Hague for war crimes.
What happened in Afghanistan and Iraq and all this.
Yeah. They know they'll end up in the Hague. So they refuse to have anything to do with the ICC. And Israel, similarly, knows that if it opens up its doors to the ICC, it will end up, its soldiers, its generals will end up like the Nazis in Nuremberg. So why should they why should they allow the ICC in when they know what's going to happen? So there we are. It's power and influence.
Okay.
But we'll see what happens.
Right. Now, the other thing, tension in Russia, Crimea, and Ukraine.
This is a war, like a Cold War almost, or maybe more than a Cold War, going on between Russia and America. Ukraine is kind of between them. Russia is trying to control Ukraine, and the West is trying to control Ukraine. And there are Russian-speaking Ukrainians and non-Russian-speaking Ukrainians. So the result is that the Russian-speaking ones are pro-Russia, and the others are America. So Ukraine now is obviously it's an important country, but it's kind of being ripped apart or being pulled one side by Russia and the other side by America and of course the West. And when there are elections, the Russians try to get their man in and the Americans try to get their man in. So, and of course the Russians are known to indulge in seriously dirty tactics. Americans do as well, but the Russians are well known for their Novichok poison, which they gave to a number of people and dissidents. And certainly the previous president of Ukraine, who was perhaps put in rather sort of crudely and illegitimately by the Americans, was poisoned by allegedly Russia.
Mhm.
And it made a mess of his face and all sorts. It really, and I don't know, I think it killed him in the end, or I'm not sure if he's still alive, but it really made an absolute mess of his body. Anyway,
right.
this will carry on.
Right, and I think the USA, the gun lobby, as Biden was talking about it, 5 members of the same family were gunned down as well. Do you think he would be successful to ban high machine guns and all this, or it will be just a waste of time?
Well, I'm not entirely sure what the state of the gun lobby is now, but the gun lobby has been, for as far back as I can remember, many decades now, one of the most powerful lobbies in the US. And it's had some very powerful supporters and a huge amount of money to support them. So, the Americans have a fascination with guns, and they don't like to give their guns up. And even though, so many innocent people die as a result of, gun violence, it's incredible. I almost got killed in America. I don't know if I never told you that, did I?
No.
Yeah, I almost got killed in America back in 1989. I went there, and it tells you, how easily available guns are, and how easily. I mean, you can't imagine that happening here. Well, to a large extent, anyway. I mean, we have gun violence in this country as well, but it's just more blatant there. I mean, I was in Atlanta, Georgia, or as they say, Atlanta, Georgia, and this is, I said, summer of '89. I went over through the British University's North America Club, BUNAC.
All right.
And I was working in a bank there, but I was living in a sort of large, you could call it a black area called West End, basically like a Brixton, okay, in London. So I just happened to know, I met somebody on Hajj the year before that, and he said, "Why don't you come and visit me?" I didn't know where he lived. I said, "Okay." I just happened to take his details, and it just so happened that I ended up in America the next year on this program, and I went to see him, and then I realized what I'd done, come into this area.
Surprise.
I used to hear gunfire every single night. Every night I used to hear gunfire. And so now, I don't know if you've heard of Imam Jamil Al-Amin, or H-Rap Brown is what he used to be called before Islam. And he used to be part of the Black Panthers in the 60s.
Right.
Big, tall, 6'6", 6'7" guy. Very slim, very tall. African-American. And he was he converted to Islam, and he was the imam in the local mosque. So I went to, and he had a shop. Now, the shop is at a high the sort of elevated the sort of road, and there's a park overlooking, which is at a much lower elevation. And it's a big, huge park. In America, everything's big. So the big park. And so it was a few hundred yards away that you could see that, there were some people there. And suddenly, broad daylight. I'm just going to the shop, and there is Imam Jamil Al-Amin, with his AK, with his M16 or American military machine gun,
right.
And he's just firing away into the park. He's standing by, right next to his shop. There's about 4 or 5 shops along that road, and they knew me because I just arrived about a few days or weeks earlier, and there he is standing there, big, tall guy, and I can see him single bullets. And I can see where he's shooting. He's shooting at like a Land Rover or Range Rover and some people there. And typical British style, excuse me, old chap, but what's going on here? And so I just went up to him.
You thought that it's a movie. You thought it's a movie.
There's a gunfight going on here, and he's firing live bullets into the park, and I'm thinking, what the hell's going on? So like typical British Englishman, hello, old chappie, but and then somebody, as I approached him, someone just one of the brothers there grabbed me from the neck and just pulled me away and threw me into one of the shops. I says, "Are you crazy? You mad? There's a gunfight going on. You could be killed any time." And I could have been killed easy. I went right up to him while he was firing away.
Right.
And he said, "Look, there's some drug dealers in the park, and they're selling drugs to kids and stuff. And so, we warned them before not to come round. Otherwise, we're going to, force them out." And that's what he's doing.
Okay, I think let's finish with this one.
That's guns for you. That's guns in America.
Right.
Oh yeah, and I can tell you, one of the brothers there, these are all black converts. He said to me, "Okay, let's go to a shooting range." I'd never even seen a gun in my life. Never mind hold a gun or whatever.
Yeah.
So I said, "Okay, let's go." I've never been to a shooting range. So he opened up his cupboard. There are about 10 guns there, literally. It wasn't real. And he said, "Oh, this is a Belgian military pistol, and this is a Magnum 45. Magnum 45?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And this is a pump action shotgun, and this is I'm thinking, this is not real,
Mm-hmm.
And this is like, and he's not even in some safe place, in his cupboard. And then, of course, we did go and we had some shooting practice, and I can tell you, I thought, wow, these people, guns is just everyday thing, normal thing for them.
It's a part of their life, yeah.
That's why when you ask about the gun lobby, they are immensely powerful because they've got so many supporters. The Americans don't want to give up their guns.
Right.
They've got
Okay.
a fascination with guns.
All right. Let's go to the last issue. Myanmar, a military coup, a lot of casualties, although it's actually demonstrations and protests are still peaceful, but the military are using live bullets and many are killed now. Now, in London, the ambassador was locked out of his residence by his deputy or military attaché.
Well, that shouldn't surprise us. I mean, look, there's been a change of government, military's taken over. So the military wants all its, supporters, of course, running their embassies. And this guy clearly was not a supporter of the military. And some of the people, around him, maybe even under him, were supporters of the military, and so they locked him out. They said, sorry, you don't represent us anymore. So they locked him out, and that would be the case in any kind of change of government. Obviously, the government wants. Sorry?
Dictatorships, yeah.
Well, exactly. I mean, there's been a change of government, whether it's dictatorship or democracy. The point is, there's a change of government, and the government wants representatives that it is happy with, that support the government. And the representative, an ambassador is, of course, a representative of the government, does not support the government, then the government is going to say goodbye. We're going to replace you. That would happen in a democracy or a dictatorship.
Because I think even the military now are moving to the Muslim minority regions, and
well, we saw it mainly the military with Buddhist monks and stuff like that. Afshin guy who mobilized the Buddhist priests as well. And the military who slaughtered the Rohingya Muslims. So, we know what they're capable of, and what the militias, whether they're Muslim or non-Muslim militias in Myanmar, are saying is, if the military does not back down, then we're going to take up arms. And
yes.
If they take up arms, then that's it. There's going to be big massacres happening.
Therefore, they want to defend themselves as well.
So things can only get worse in Myanmar.
Do you think the sanctions of the United States against the individuals of the military coup will be sufficient to get them to their senses and bring democracy and the civilian government?
China will support Myanmar, and probably Russia will maybe as well. So they've got their supporters. So, American sanctions will have some impact, but you can see, look, how much have American sanctions impacted Iran? They've been strangling Iran, but Iran has still got a reasonably powerful economy, even though the people obviously are not in a good condition. But when you look at the comparison of the economies, the Iranian or the North Koreans, and sanctions will have an impact, but the country will find a way to survive. Just like Qatar. Look at the massive sanctions that the Saudis and the Emiratis and others put on Qatar to strangle it. But survival, you will find a way to survive. Okay. And so they increased their ties with Turkey, Russia, Iran, and there was nothing that the Saudis could do. So even though they cut off all routes, they stopped them from flying over their airspace, they boycotted their goods and all sorts. So sanctions will have some impact, definitely, but not necessarily to destroy the regime.
Okay, Jazakallah khair. I think we just remind our listeners as well, you can put your comments on admin@Radio Hajj online. And of course, that today at 3:15, there will be, I think 3:31, I think the new moon is born, but it will not be seen anywhere. It's why we will be going for the 30th of Sha'ban on Monday, and therefore Ramadan, inshallah, will be on Tuesday. And we pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to bless you all and to bless us all and help us to reach Ramadan, of course, and help us to fast its days and stand its nights in prayer as well. And we thank our brother Asad Zaman for his contribution as well. Allah bless him, inshallah. And until inshallah we meet again, we say subhanakallah wa bihamdik, nashhadu an astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.
And wa assalamu alaikum from me, and Ramadan Mubarak to everyone as well.
Jazakallah khair.